Count Dracula is alive.
Dracula has risen from the grave. You gotta love the title, and the title screen itself. The movie begins with the discovery of a dead girl in a church. The bite marks on her neck clearly indicate that she's been killed by Dracula. Then we jump ahead a year later, and Dracula is dead, frozen under the ice, which is exactly how he ended up last time. So, wait, let's back up. If we're continuing from where the last movie left off, then who's the girl? She wasn't in the last movie, so when did Dracula have time to run off, kill a random girl, and hang her in a church bell? I feel like this opening scene is really unnecessary. Anyway, Dracula's dead in the ice, but people are still superstitious and frightened of the castle.
The shadow of his castle, sir.
It touches the church.
The castle is still evil. You can feel it.
A priest decides that maybe they'll feel better if he goes to the castle, says a prayer, and hangs a cross on the door. Unfortunately, there's another priest with him who falls on the ice, cracks it, and somehow manages to bleed straight into Dracula's mouth. And that's all it takes for him to come back. Not to mention, we see Dracula's reflection. This, I guess, is another movie where they didn't establish the lore. Christopher Lee was still refusing the Dracula role, but Hammer kept begging him. Just to paraphrase Lee from interviews, he said he was told that if he didn't play the part, he would be putting people out of work. He's the most reluctant horror icon. Even if he didn't like it, he's awesome. He doesn't have many lines, but when he does, it always feels important.
Now my revenge is complete.
Dracula doesn't have many scenes, which isn't that uncommon. Even the novel focused on the characters who were trying to fight Dracula. Dracula was never in the forefront of the story. Whether or not this is a good Dracula movie depends how much you care about the main characters. In this regard, I think it's one of the best. The hero is a guy named Paul, played by Barry Andrews. He's not your typical vampire hunter. He's just a regular guy who doesn't even know anything about Dracula until he has to save his girlfriend, Maria, played by the beautiful Veronica Carlson. One of my favorite scenes is when he comes to dinner to meet her parents. Her father happens to be a priest and keeps asking him about where he goes to church. He reveals that he's an atheist.
I'm an atheist, sir.
Even though he's respectful about it and is just trying to be honest, the father flips out.
And you come here to my house, speaking this blasphemy?
I think making him an atheist was a clever idea, because that makes it harder for him to fight Dracula. You see, the running theme in all these movies is the power of good over evil. Dracula is repelled by holy signs like the cross, but since Paul doesn't believe in that, that means Dracula can overcome. He drives a stake into Dracula's heart, but it doesn't kill him because he needs to pray too.
You must pray. I can't.
Normally, the stake would be enough, but this movie changes the myth a little bit. I like that Dracula throws the stake back. His real death scene is much more symbolic. He happens to fall on a cross, representing good over evil, and then Paul finds his faith. You want to know something really weird? This movie is rated G by the Motion Picture Association of America. That's the equivalent of a children's cartoon, yet it has not one, but 2 stabbing scenes. Both are shown in explicit detail. There's blood coming out the eyes, for fuck's sakes. This should be PG-13, at least PG. Of course, there was no rating system back then. Actually, it's a little bit iffy because the film came out the same year the rating system went into effect. So we can assume the MPAA went back and rated this movie without even watching it. Dracula has risen from the grave? That's kind of like Care Bears, right? Yeah, give it a G. What were they thinking? The beginning is a bit clumsy and illogical, but the rest is pretty good. I'm interested in what's going on with the main story and not just waiting around for Dracula to show up. It's not the same Van Helsing story rehashed again, and it's not the cliché travelers wander into an old house story. This one is fresh and new.